Hi guys, welcome back to Novel Nomad, and today is going to be another tag for Tuesday. It is going to be the Audiobooks tag. This is created by Books and Things, who I absolutely love. She, to me, is the authority on Victorian literature here on BookTube, so do go check her out. I've linked her videos and channel down below, and she's absolutely amazing, and she's just so intelligent and such a joy to watch. So question one is, have you always listened to audiobooks? Or if not, when did you start? Now, I think I didn't listen to audiobooks to begin with. I always read my books. But I first started listening to audiobooks because I loved North and South, and a certain man in North and South. I think everyone who has watched that knows he's called Richard Armitage. And I found out he was the narrator of this lovely audiobook called Sylvester. It's one of Georgette Heyer's. Now, Georgette Heyer started writing in about the 1920s. She writes mainly Regency romances, very much in the vein of Jane Austen, not so much in the vein of what we get after the 1980s. But yeah, they're absolutely fabulous, and Sylvester is really funny to listen to, especially Richard Armitage doing all the voices. I think this was a wonderful first experience. It is abridged, and I did find out later I do much prefer unabridged, but Sylvester was definitely a great starting point. And then from there I basically signed up to Audible, which I'll leave a link to down below. And I signed up to that because I had to get through at least 5 large Victorian novels within about 3 weeks. So I need a little bit of help, and I just thought audiobooks might help me along with that. Question 2 is, what is your favourite audiobook? And I had to choose 2. I could not decide between these 2. And the first one, I actually read the book first, but I wanted to have another reading experience of this book. So I immediately picked up the audiobook, and that is, of course, The Beast Garden. I haven't talked about this book enough. But yeah, so this is by Kate Forsyth, but the audiobook was produced by Belinda Audio, who is an Australian audiobooks producer, and it's narrated by Jennifer Voltek. I think I pronounced that right. But she added so much more to the story than my experience. I think just the emotion and the accent and the intense emotions that she was able to convey just in her voice made it an absolutely outstanding audiobook, and it's one that's always stayed with me. My second favourite is definitely going to be Mark Lawrence's The Red Queen's War trilogy. This is the first book, The Prince of Fools. I love the narrator Tim Gerard Reynolds. How he manages to convey Jalen's voice is fantastic, because you hear the whole story from Jalen's voice, so it can't be someone who you get really irritated by. And he whines a lot, Jalen. So I think the way he manages to convey such a haughty ridiculousness, but also complete cowardly behaviour, is absolutely fantastic. So I know there's 2 versions. Tim Gerard Reynolds is the US version, and the UK version was really good. Jalen was actually, he sounds a lot younger, the narrator, but I don't think he really conveyed to me that comic narration that Tim Gerard Reynolds just manages to completely capture. So question number 3 is your least favourite audiobook. Now, I have chosen 3 pet peeves that I have with audiobooks instead, because I listen to a majority of mine through Overdrive, through my library, and the ones that I didn't like, I honestly don't remember, because I don't really have a record on my phone. It's on my Goodreads, but I haven't linked them up. So my 3 pet peeves. Number 1 is mispronouncing words. I've had this a few times. It really throws me out of the narrative. I have to pause. I have to try and work out what they mean, and that's really frustrating. Number 2 is wrong accents, or not even like they change the accents halfway through, like they realize, oh, they're supposed to be Scottish, so they went from sounding English to now sounding roughly Scottish. Or Australian accents. Oh, I know I'm biased, but they're hard to do, Australian accents, because it's a very unique accent, I suppose, in a way. And yeah, so that's always funny and frustrating, especially when it throws you out of a character. Like, hang on, I thought when I read it, he was like, he's supposed to be South African, and why does he sound like he's Cockney? And number 3 is static or background noise. It just completely annoys me, because I often listen to audiobooks using headphones, I can hear that background noise and it's really disconcerting, especially when there's an echo, or you can kind of hear like pages turning. That is frustrating. Sorry, I do have a notebook here. But yeah, that's a little bit frustrating, and I'm sure it could be edited out. But they're really the main things that annoy me. Number 4 is a really good question. It's, what do you think is the difference in experience between reading a physical book to listening to an audiobook? Now, I know for myself, audiobooks, perhaps I don't have as much retention. I don't retain the story as well as I do in a book that I physically have read. But it really depends on the audiobook. If it's just straight out written, if it's just straight out read by one person, then I might forget it. But if it's a really interactive, dynamic cast reading, then I am sure to remember it really well. So it really depends on the production, on the reader, and on the story, how the audiobook manages to capture my attention. But I have that with physical books as well. I can't really say that. I just have to say I do retain more when I read a physical book. And I am actually a faster physical reader than I am with audiobooks, but I just find audiobooks handy sometimes when I know I'm going to have a really busy schedule and I have to run around and catch buses and things like that. It's just nice to have something to listen to. So this kind of leads into question number 5, which is how and when do you listen to audiobooks? Now, I do multiple different experiences. I listen to audiobooks while I'm walking, whilst I'm driving. I have it on my hand-free speakers, don't worry, whilst I'm on public transport. And also if I'm at home, either when I'm editing something, if I don't need to listen to anything whilst editing, or I just start playing solitaire on my phone. If I'm somewhere, I'll be listening to an audiobook and playing solitaire. That's my combo. Question 6 is, what style or genre do you prefer in audiobooks? Now, personally, genre style in books, I like giant family sagas on audiobooks. I like really epic fantasies because sometimes they're narrated so fantastically well. And some of the classics are narrated by really famous actors, and their experience you can just feel coming through the audiobook, so they're fantastic. But also probably a little sub-side of that I absolutely love is I like books that are either read by the author, especially biographies, because it brings that more personal experience, and it's as if you're understanding their experience but also making a friend in a way. And secondly, I really loved unabridged books. I find abridged books, whilst faster, they're always lacking. I like the full story. I like getting the full experience. And the last question, I'm just going to give you some recommendations for audiobooks. I've picked a bit of an eclectic mix, and so besides these first 2 that you can see right here, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to tell you the title of the book, the author, and also the narrator. So first off, we have Patrick Gale's A Place Called Winter, read by Patrick Gale. I went to see him at a book festival, and when I saw that he actually had narrated his book, it was absolutely wonderful to listen to him because it's based off a personal family myth. So in a way, it's bringing that personal connection to the reader. Secondly, P.G. Wodehouse, this one in particular, A Damsel in Distress, was read by Jonathan Cecil. Shrill by Lindy West, read by Lindy West. It was absolutely fascinating to listen to her read this book and go through all her personal experiences. The ever-charming Miriam Margolyes, who reads Alice in Wonderland. This is produced by Belinda Audio in Australia, so I'm not sure if you can get it in the US, but if you can, definitely pick up Miriam Margolyes because she does such a joy to all the characters, and it just has that classic Victorian feel because she's been in so many classic period dramas on BBC. Redemption in Indigo, written by Karen Lord, and the audiobook is narrated by Robin Mills. This was absolutely fantastic to listen to because Robin Mills ensured that the West African accent stayed true to the characters. Alright, so this is a very well-known one, but I still have to recommend it, and that is Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy. This is the first book, Northern Lights. It is narrated by him, but it has a full dramatic cast. So all the actors have different roles and they do different speaking parts, and Philip Pullman does the narration. So it's absolutely amazingly produced. I wish all audiobooks could be produced like this because it just gives such an excellent experience, but it would be very expensive. If you want to start somewhere and start with a great pinnacle read, definitely this series. And finally, not quite an audiobook, but a podcast, and that is A History of the World in 100 Objects by Neil McGregor. It is actually on its own podcast, A History of the World in 100 Objects, and it is narrated by Neil McGregor, and they use amazing sound clips and everything from there and interviews from various people to just bring a really interactive experience to the podcast and describing the different objects. Okay, so that is the audiobooks tag. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below and tell me, what is your favourite audiobook, or what is your favourite book that you would love to listen to as an audiobook? So I'll see you all next time. Bye!